Hey guys, so I've had a few questions on how to close this top part of a crescent moon in some of my earring tutorials. I'm going to go over it again in a short video. Quick tutorial, I just have a 6-inch piece of 20 gauge or 0.8 millimeter brass wire. This is artistic wire in brass. I also have my round ring mandrel. You can use a marker or any other object that you want to use that is completely round and the size that you want it to be. So to make a crescent moon shape, I'm simply just going to place the wire with about a 1 to 2 inch tail hanging off and just wrap it around. Right, we're going to grab our chain nose pliers and just pick a point. Like if you were to imagine a moon, that would be the tip of the base of the moon. Once you have that, you're going to press and push this wire back. Your goal is to fold it straight back, okay, so that you're creating a sharp point, and you can give it a gentle little squeeze with your chain nose pliers. Next, you want a smaller round object that will be the inside of the moon. This can be smaller than what you want it to be because this wire will kind of spring open, creating a bigger round area than what the actual marker size is, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to put the marker in here. And where that little bend is, I kind of hook my fingernail in. If you don't have fingernails, just squeeze it really hard with your thumb as you grab that wire and just wrap it around the marker. And you pull it off, and you can see that you have a fairly nice round shape. So in order to make it more like a crescent moon, we are going to grab our chain nose pliers and open this up a little bit. All right, here's our chain nose pliers. I like to just grab that back wire, which is the inside of our moon, and I am just going to hold the wire here and twist. I'm turning the pliers down in this motion here, which should help open up the moon. And to make it even more like a moon, we are just going to use our fingers to kind of push and pull until we get the shape of the crescent moon that looks nice to us, okay? So you should have something like this with the wire of the outside of the moon crossing over at an angle kind of facing down, and the inside of the moon just kind of hanging out there. Looking back, I probably would have left a longer tail on the outside of the moon when I was doing that first little loop around the ring mandrel, but this will still be enough to make the earring loop that we'll be doing in this quick tutorial. I have the two wires that are crossed. The one that's on top right here is the outside of the moon, with the inside of the moon being behind. I'm simply going to pinch these together. That should help keep the shape of the moon here. And I am just going to push this wire back. The idea is I want to fold it completely back to create kind of the same line and to give it a sharp point. Remember, I'm using my fingers, but you can also use your pliers if you find it a bit too hard. So now we have a nice little point here. I'm going to go ahead and grab my pliers to give this a nice little squeeze before we move on to this next step of hiding this wire right here, okay? So I have my chain nose pliers, which are the ones with the flat head. I'm just going to give this a gentle squeeze. And now for this wire, I'm also going to try and bend it back. I'm still holding these. Most of the pressure I'm doing is being put on this inside wire because we don't want to accidentally pull it and distort the shape of the moon. So I'm just going to start pushing it back. Okay, I guess I'm kind of going at a downward angle. I'm going to show you guys on the back side too. Let's get it to focus. And I'm just going to pull it, okay? Oop. Fingers are a bit slippery. Just going to squeeze that in. And at this point, I can go ahead and clip off that little extra right there before I squeeze it in with my chain nose pliers. So I have my wire cutters here. I have the flush, which is the flat edge, facing towards the wire. And I am just going to cut some of that off. Try to hold that so it doesn't fly off. All right, so now our goal is to grab our chain nose pliers again and gently try to squeeze this little loop shut. We want to do so without scarring our wire. I am using brass wire because that is what the commenter, that's what they said that they were using. And it's true, brass wire can be a bit harder to work with than copper wire sometimes. It depends on the brand. But yeah, it does have a bit more spring to it. So also the problem may just be learning how to use brass wire or harder wires like that, because they can put up a little bit of a fight, you know. So the whole idea is to just kind of create a loop that gives the illusion of having a nice sharp point here. And then once we have that, we can go ahead and use our round nose pliers to create a little loop here. So we just want to find a spot where we want the little loop to be. If we want it to be here, it means that the moon will kind of have an angle like this. We can also kind of fold this wire back with the idea of tracing that outline of the moon right there if we want the loop to be a bit more in the center, which means the moon design would also be a bit more centered like this. So I have my round nose pliers, and I'm actually just going to go ahead and grip both of these wires. It's not going to hurt the outside of that moon. Just remember, always grip as much as you need, not more. It can be easy to over grip with round nose pliers, which will create a dent in your wire, which is not pretty. So I know this is at a weird angle, but I'm just holding that, and I'm just going to kind of push this wire, moving the wire around the round nose pliers in order to shape it around. I'm not actually doing the work with the pliers, okay? Remember, there is so much that you can do with your hands in wire wrapping rather than with the tools. Well, now I'm getting stuck, but if that happens, just move that wire back. All right, and you can make that smaller if you want. For that part, I will use my tools because that wire is slippery. And I'm just gripping and rotating like that, okay? And then just go in with your wire cutters and clip that off. Okay, so I am clipping it off just right there. And with those chain nose pliers, I am just going to pinch that in. So since the brass wire is a bit of a harder wire, you don't necessarily need to attach that down because that is pretty strong already. If you're using a softer colored wire, the enameled wires are usually a bit softer. I would go in with some 28 gauge wire, which is like your 0.3 millimeter, your really thin wire, and just kind of wrap it around both of these wires a bit to secure that down so that your earrings won't get pulled while you're wearing them. And that's how I make my little moons.